Hey guys, in this video we're talking about angle bisectors. But before we get into angle bisectors, let's understand what that key word means. If you look this up in the dictionary, bisect means basically to divide into equal parts or to split in halves. And you'll see this a lot in geometry with segments and angles and even shapes. But in this case, we're talking about angles. Okay, so when we have a large angle like this, we can have a line or a ray that serves as an angle bisector. And you might notice that word in that term, that bisect. So that means that this ray in this case is splitting this angle into two congruent angles. Now, before we get into solving some stuff, first of all, you need to know that this is an angle bisector. And there are a couple of different ways that you're going to be told that this is an angle bisector. It can either be in the problem, like in the word problem, it'll say that this ray is an angle bisector, or you're going to see those congruency marks like you see here, where those little red arcs are telling you that those two angles are congruent. So you have to know something about this problem in order to solve it. Now, when we talk about angle bisectors, there are a couple of rules that you're going to know. So the first rule is that, just like what we talked about, those two smaller angles are going to be congruent. So when we're solving for something, we just set those two things equal to each other. And the second rule is that if we know the larger angle measure, then all we have to do to figure out the two smaller ones is they're both going to be half of whatever the larger one is. Okay. So let's look at this a little more in depth. So if we take the first rule, for instance, we know that these two angles are congruent to each other. And if I have all the numbers, I know that one angle is 50 degrees. Well, then I know the other angle is going to be 50 degrees. And if I have to know what that third angle is, then all I have to do is add those two together to figure out the third angle. And conversely, if I know the larger angle, in this case 100 degrees, I can use the second rule to solve this problem then. And I know that each of those smaller angles is going to be half of whatever that larger angle is, in this case 100. So all I have to do is take half of 100, or take that 100 and divide by 2. It's the same thing. And I know that each one of these angles then is going to be 50 degrees. Now, what if I have an algebra expression like this though? Okay, I know that this is an angle bisector problem because I see those little congruency marks, so I know that those two angles are the same. So I'm going to use that first rule that we talked about, where we know that those two angles are congruent. And this is my template that I'm going to use in a problem like this. So all I have to do is set each one of those algebraic expressions equal to each other. So in this case, our equation would look like 3x plus 20 equals 5x. So we just set them equal to each other, and then we solve like normal. And as we solve down, we realize what our x value is. And then to figure out the measure of those two angles, all we have to do is plug in the 10 to figure out, in this case, that both of those angles are equal to 50 degrees. So that is angle bisectors. Until next time.